Another live stream here. It's Thursday, December 26th. Today I talk a little bit about comping and concepts on that, and continue to discuss a little bit about dolphin dance. So I've put 2 videos out recently on dolphin dance by Herbie Hancock, and put out a video on how chords are named. So here to take your questions and comments. Love to chat with you. So join me here. I'll maybe do a little noodling up front. Okay, so a few little practice tips for you. Consider rather than playing through whole forms all of the time anyway, consider playing a small sequence of changes, and even just one change to 2 chords. So just there I was exploring a little bit of C minor and A flat major 7 versus C minor and A minor 7 D7, and that's part of the changes for dolphin dance. Arif, welcome, thanks for joining. Yeah, so when it comes to forms, it can obviously be helpful to play through whole forms, but when it comes to practice, you know, I would recommend, let's say you play through dolphin dance with a backing track or iReal Pro. I go through and evaluate like what feels vague in there, and then go back to that moment or that change where that happens, and take C minor 7, A flat major 7, for example, and go back and forth. What notes remain the same? What notes are different? And that's what we'll talk a little bit about with comping and chord changes and chord voicing. So I hope to maybe shed some light on that as well. And happy holidays to everyone. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your chat. Appreciate it. All right, we have a question here. What is your approach to small changes? Just play triads. So we can think about, triads. You can think about, I think I'm thinking this is relating to what I was just talking about. Absolutely, you can work on triads. So that's a good example here. But I wouldn't limit yourself just to triads. I would to really get a sense for what remains the same and what changes. I would try to play like 7-note scales to really kind of get into that. So here's an example. So we have, let's say we have C minor 7, and let's say we have A flat major 7. So one triad that we have in common there is the C minor triad between, C minor and A flat major 7. Okay, so that's a place where in your soloing you could have a sort of a consistent sound or a theme or something going, and work that into both changes. And then when you get over to the A minor 7, you can change that to C major triad on the A minor 7, because in a sense A minor 7 is a C over A, right? So yeah, that would be a good approach. So I've got another question here. Okay, so when you need to play a 7th chord, do you play triad 1, 3, 7, skip 5? What is your approach when required for notes? Yeah, okay, good question. So generally, triads are going to be not necessarily 1, 3, 7. So you can think about triads in terms of like C major triad and its inversions. We have 4 basic triads. We have the major and its inversions. So you'll have 2 inversions plus the root position, and then you have minor. Then we have augmented, and then we have diminished. So those are typically the 4 triad types. So when you go to think about 1, 3, and 7, usually the terminology is like shell voicing. So where you just have the really essential elements of that particular sound. So just some definition type things. Now the 5th is often omitted, partly just because I think the nature of sound is that when you have a C, say for example, or any note, there's an overtone series, and the most prominent ones are probably like the octaves, right? But you also have a 5th in that sound already, right? Because it's just part of that overtone series, and it's one of the more prominent tones. So the 5th is often omitted, I think, for that reason. Also on guitar, we just have limitations, a lot more limitations than piano player has. So for 4-note voicings, you can always include the 5th if that works for you. So, but oftentimes, for kind of smooth voice leading types of things, you might work with. So, for example, if you play this A minor 7, right? So that has a 5th, right? If you go to D7, you might play D9, because that's just going to be kind of like smooth voice leading. Not going to get too much into the details here, but so this voicing will have no 5th in it, right? So a 9 is a good starting place if you omit the 5th and you're looking to keep 4 tones. So you might start with 9s, but if you're looking at like on that A minor 7, if you want something other than the 5th, and here the 11 is going to work really well. 11 generally does work well on minor chords. You have to be a little bit careful with the 6 because it tends to be dissonant, and it tends to be kind of dependent on the context, which 6 you put in there. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Start with drop 3 voicings. So a drop 3 voicing has the third from the highest note drop down 1 octave, and so that translates into guitar. You know, drop 2 and drop 3 work just great for guitar because of the just limitations of how far the hand can stretch, and just how it fits into our tuning system. So, you know, an A minor 7 drop 3 voicing is like this, right? So if you're looking for a nice smooth voice leading, I'm at D7. Right, this would be the second inversion of a D7 in drop 3. So that's gonna have a relationship to that D9 I mentioned. So if you and one thing that happens with that is the middle 2 strings can have really nice, smooth voice leading tendencies if you use your drop 3 voicings and the inversions of drop 3 voicings. But of course, you can alter that, so you can play like an A minor 6, and that's gonna sort of sound like an inversion of D9. And then if you're wanting the root note of D, you just move that over and you get D9. So I hope that does help. Any further questions, please let me know. Appreciate it. Okay, so but that actually ties in really well to some things that I'm hoping to discuss today, which is comping. And I plan to quite possibly release a video on comping towards the end of this week, if all goes well. And on dolphin dance. So what I'd like folks to experiment with and try, maybe leading up to that, is this idea of taking a chord voicing. Let's say we have C minor 7. So C minor 7 in second inversion. And then experiment with seeing if you can think about a voicing for your next chord change. So let's say in dolphin dance we have A flat major 9. So we're already there, right? So that's kind of cool, right? You can decide, well, I can just play the same thing. Now, if you want, you know, say let's say you're on C minor 7, bass is playing C, and then you want to go to this A flat, but you want to include the sharp 11, just bump this finger back 1, right? So that's kind of cool. So little areas like that where you can explore moving from one chord to the next. Let's say you're on C minor 7, up here in position 8. You've got C, and you want to move to A flat major 7 or major 9. So it's just same concept. Could say, oh, we're already there, right? Or of course you can just change to a root position, A flat major 7. Or you can say, okay, well, what if I play A flat major 9? I'm going to move from this C minor, and I'm going to try to get this sharp 11 going. Right, you can just make this one little shift to the tones there. So, and that applies really well to Melodic playing as well, and I think I've mentioned that in previous live streams, is taking your line and moving stepwise from the last tone of one chord to your next tone or your target of the upcoming chord, so, or harmony. All right, let's take a minute to remind folks to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications and visit fretprints.com. I'm taking a little time. I take a little break this time of year to do some resting for one thing, but also to plan for the future and take care of some undone things from the year, wrapping up. But I've got a really exciting project here, developing the fretprints.com website into a member area. So I'm brainstorming ideas on it, and if you'd like to be one of the early folks to it, I'm gonna kind of have a little test run on things. So head over there, click the join button, read a little bit about what I'm planning to do, and join the email list if you haven't already, and I will send you an invite to try it out for free. So it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm looking at incorporating sound slice into it. So these are very interactive type lessons where you can actually loop sections of video, and it has notation. It's all integrated. Really kind of a cool tool. I plan to have video on demand type things, and live streams, and webinars style things as well. So check that out. Okay, so I released a video on how chords are named and some of the things there. So hopefully I got across the idea of some conventional type naming systems. Another thing is there are a lot, as far as chord symbols go, there's a lot of different types of symbols that really mean kind of the same thing. So that's another area that I may dive into more in future talks. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Christian says, nice guitar. Is that the Scofield? No, it's not the John Scofield. It's the AS200. Andrew, thank you for your question. Let me know, guys, as we go through this stream, and maybe Andrew, you can tell me right now. When is the best time? Is it noon, or is it yeah? When is the best time in day? So this is something that I've been trying to consider. So thank you for your question, because it's really valuable. And yeah, thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, holler out a time, time of day of the week. I love to compile some things and get the most folks possible. But yeah, that's a question I have asked myself is, do folks watch at lunchtime, later in the evening? One issue for me is that I teach from 3 to 9, so the afternoons are difficult for me. But yeah, life is hectic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad to do it. I took a little rest on the live streams for I don't know, 6 months or a year, but I'm getting back to it. can always rewatch. Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for joining today, and yeah, a little more about the guitar. They've renamed their series the AS 2000, but this is one of the Japanese models. Um, I took this little cover off because I'm just not so much a fan of the naming Prestige, so I don't want to feel like prestigious. I don't know if that's silly or what, but I just so I might just get a aftermarket truss rod cover here. But also I was just accessing it early on, but I hardly ever adjust it. So um, Gibson, the Gibson equivalent, or Gibson type, same body shape, I think would be the 335. Gibsons are definitely awesome, especially if you get their custom shop. One thing that kind of concerns me about Gibsons is the history of that company and the consistency of their output over the years, and then kind of pricing concerns. So, but one of the viewers here on the channel has a Gibson. I think it's a custom shop, and he came here for ensemble work, and it was amazing. It was awesome. So Christian says, a Christian influence says, I had a Gibson 335. How does this compare to something like that? So I don't have a ton of experience with the Gibson 335, but I would say it's going to be very similar. And one thing I'm considering doing on this one is possibly switching it out to active pickups, but I'm not sure. I kind of don't want to do that. But here in the studio, I'm trying to keep my noise level really kind of low, but I may need some maintenance on my mic preamp, which I'm not running through right now, because I've noticed since I bypassed that, it's been pretty quiet. So that just I may need to send that in for some repairs, because actually one of the lights stopped working on that stuff. Yeah, Telecasters and SGs, those are cool. I've got one student who's got an SG. I haven't seen a lot of folks play that with like jazz or anything, but I did the restringing on that, and it was amazing. I mean, like, just really, really good. Very, very impressed with it. I really like to get a Telecaster, but I think I would get like a Mike Stern Yamaha model, or maybe go with Godin or something. I saw that Ibanez was making them. I wasn't really a big fan of the design that they came up with on that, but I'm sure they're probably really good. What is the first scale that I learned? Well, I probably learned the pentatonic scale, like so many of us guitarists do. It was a long time ago, but it was probably the A minor pentatonic. But I did quickly learn the major scale as well. I feel very fortunate that I was able to take lessons from a guitarist here based in Baltimore or Catonsville, as a teenager, and he was a big Steely Dan fan. So it was pretty early on that I started learning, like um, the major seven chord. I remember when the major seven chord was just a huge deal for me. I was like, wow, oh, that's incredible. Because going from, when I was a teenager, it was kind of like Nirvana was a big thing. The whole grunge scene that was like the big musical influence. It was sort of like this shift from the 80s hair bands to the grunge and all that. So I was kind of familiar with these types of voicings and all that, and so he was kind of showing me some Steely Dan and some of the voicings there, and so I really found it. Um, that really helped me. And then he introduced me to some um, Beatles, which included the solo that I was a huge fan of. And he told me it was a hollow body guitar, and I was like, wow, I just love that sound. So that's kind of how I got started into sort of this whole jazz thing. For me, that was my experience, and then I got I'm kind of like, who else plays hollow body guitar? And found Joe Pass, and found this. I bought this Latin album. You're very fortunate, I think, in those days. I didn't realize how fortunate I was, to have someone pay for my lessons, and have a record store in Catonsville, Maryland. It's like the kind of this music town, and I think the record store is closed, but I could go in there and just look for somebody who had a hollow body guitar on the cover and be like, oh, I should really check this out, um, and I love that sound. So, but speaking of which, and I'll get back to some of these earlier questions. Do you use solid body for jazz? And you absolutely can, and so many people do. I mean, the Telecaster has a really long history with that. I mean, I know Ted Green wasn't um, too active with making albums, and maybe didn't perform all that much. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but he played a Telecaster, I think, mainly. And you've got Bill Frisell, who's a long history of playing Telecaster. You see modern contemporary folks like Julian Lage, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, um, who plays that. And I think if you're playing the language, what you're playing on, you know is a part of it, but it doesn't have to be a certain way, I don't think. um, but to get back to your previous statement or question, Jens Larson, who's a really big, influential jazz guitar educator, I'm sure everybody knows about him, was interesting. Doesn't matter which guitar you use. He was comparing Strat and semi-hollows, etc. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, actually, my very first guitar was a Stratocaster, Fender Stratocaster. Um, Snarky Puppy. I've noticed a lot of the guitarists in that group play Stratocasters, and yeah. So it's all what your voice, you know, what you want to deliver in your sound. So I'll talk a little bit about this guitar and why I choose that, but I'll get to some other questions and stuff. Um, so Jerry White says struggles with hand positions. Yeah, try if you can. try to work with the with positions of one finger per fret. And then if that's hard for you to do, try to do more shifting, right? Like Wes Montgomery, I don't believe he used his pinky much at all, at least for melodic playing. And so you might go through. Let's say you're working with one of the 5 fingerings. Work on shifting. And then if you're more comfortable with not using the pinky, which is perfectly fine, just do more shifting, right? So just shift along. Just focus on fingers 1 and 2, right? And if you even think about Django Reinhardt, he had a hand injury, had to kind of, I think, rework his approach to his technique, and I believe he mostly only used his 2 fingers, right? And then maybe use 3 and 4 to play maybe some chords and things. So all that, as far as us, playing, we're all playing like the same instrument. We have very similar physiologies to the hand, but we're all a little different too, and we've got to work with different limitations. And Django Reinhardt had what would seem to be an insurmountable limitation, and he overcame it. So try to do what works for your own hand. Another thing I would say is try to dive into what each finger is good at. Each finger is quite a bit different, and there is something to the first 2 fingers where they are really, really strong, right? And the third and fourth fingers are not very independent of one another. The third finger is really weak. The fourth finger can be very strong if it's developed. Those are some things that I've learned just through practice and stuff. So I would recommend that. William, hello. Yes, merry belated Christmas to you too. I had a really nice Christmas. It was really awesome. I hope you did too. And let's see. Andrew Adventures. Agreed. Guitar is just so subjective. It's what feels good and inspires you more than anything else. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Do I use solid body for jazz? Yeah, I mean, this is a semi-hollow or semi-solid. It has a solid piece of wood down the center, and it's hollow on the sides. I really like it. At some point, I would like to add a full hollow body. I do have a couple of hollow bodies that I do like to use, but they are in need of repair at the moment. So, but what I'm finding right now is, I think in an ideal situation, and maybe as my YouTube channel expands, maybe I can budget for this, but I'd love to have, like, Mike Stern, all the Mike Stern repertoire, just do it on that Yamaha signature guitar or something. I think that would be really awesome to do. Or all Matheny tunes do on an ES 175 or a copy of that. I think that would be really really amazing. So speaking of which, one of the students here, one of the followers on the channel, has now has the new Ibanez model of the of Pat Metheny model, and it sounds really fantastic. So check that out if you haven't already. So yeah, but I have this this guy right here. Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll switch it around. But if you're going for that classic, jazz sound, a lot of it's going to be in the tone of your tone settings. You can turn your tone down pretty low. I'll tune this a little bit first, and then take some questions here. Arif, and I'll mention that I'm streaming horizontally and vertically. So if I'm talking to people you don't see, that's why. Let me tune this up real quick for us. But one thing that so on this guitar, I actually use this a lot for teaching, and doing some of the more maybe like fusion or rock type things. And one thing that I don't feel as comfortable on this instrument is, or one reason I don't feel as comfortable on this instrument is that the strings are real light, and I use it for like bending. So ideally, I would probably prefer to have a heavier string on this, but so, and then with the light strings, it's tempting to overbend them a little bit, but yeah, I think try to set your neck up if you're looking for a solid body, and you're looking to get kind of a darker tone. Use your neck pickup. So this would be the neck pickup, set up fairly low tone. But John Abercrombie, I think, played mainly solid body, maybe not too different from this. There are some Metheny concerts where I've actually seen, I think it's like this guitar model anyway. But I really love the 70s, so this is a sort of appeal to me. But it does have that kind of rock sort of vibe to it. Okay, so let's get to some questions. What is your advice for intermediate players who want to learn jazz? What will be the first step? Well, what's really great is that if you have done some rock and blues, I would recommend starting with the blues repertoire of jazz. So pick tunes like Blue Monk, Straight No Chaser. Maybe start with Thelonious Monk type tunes. Blue bossa. Start with short form type things. Blue bossa is really great because it has a short time where it's in major and it's mostly in minor, so that can be kind of helpful. Maybe don't start with particularly long forms or complicated tunes. But Autumn Leaves, and you might try to do a search on, I think there are quite a few videos on, what jazz repertoire to learn on YouTube. So I'll create a little bit of a repertoire list on that, and start with that. So blues and minor, do like Mr. PC, do something. Coltrane wrote a lot of nice minor blues tunes. Equinox, and you'll probably get those running almost immediately, if you've done some blues tunes before. So that's where I would start. And yeah, the thing I think about folks who play, let's say mainly by ear on rock tunes. And I'm generalizing here, but you might find that you can just lean back on that pentatonic scale or what have you, and it all kind of works and fits. But on jazz tunes, you want to get some familiarity with chord scales, and try not to get too in the weeds with modes, but you're really going to need some understanding how modes fit and operate. And that's a little bit of I'm starting this whole series on music theory, and I just put a few of these releases into a playlist, so check that out on the channel. I'm not sure it's on my main channel page, but anyway, so check out my channel, scan around, and there's the whole. I'm going to put a whole series of things that I would really like folks to learn or get a little bit of a handle on, so that with this membership community website, it's going to be geared more to our intermediate and advanced. So I want to put things on the kind of public YouTube channel that folks can kind of get a handle on during or maybe before they kind of join that whole thing. So there's some thoughts there. I'll do a little more noodling, and I'm gonna close out here in a couple minutes. But thanks so much, everybody, for joining and your questions. Much appreciated. So a couple things, with let's say jazz blues or anything. I just have a really good handle on the Mixolydian mode, and then you can kind of move through some of the changes on those, and then you can always apply kind of minor pentatonic really throughout. So that's a good place to begin, I would say. So Arif, thank you for your comments and questions, and so that's on the mobile live stream. And thank you for William Downey for your holiday greetings, much appreciated. Thank you, Andrew, for joining in, and Jeffrey also. I hope I helped you out with your hand positions and everything. and Christian Influence. Thanks for joining. And I will see you all in the next one. Don't forget to visit fretprince.com. And if you want to contribute to the channel, check out the merch store. I've got some mugs, and don't forget to follow the podcast and all that. All right, everybody. Thanks again, and I will see you all in the next one.